maybe some of these techniques or tricks can be very helpful in fetching you more marks. See, it's always a risk, but I think it's worth taking the risk. This time also, if you see the options, mostly the number of options which were right was only 2 pairs. So that kind of logic is people put, and my friends have also scored 130. So it's not only through knowledge you can get this confidence that whatever UPSC is giving, and the statement was not sure. So I thought it was only playing around with the students, and usually these statements or facts, these organizations, institutions are wrong. This is 45. This is almost 50% of the paper, just these 3 subjects. So I would make sure that these areas are very strong, especially static, and I would not go wrong in these. Yes, sir. So earlier, I used to read a lot for prelims, like the PT 365, which comes out. It's around 600 to 800 pages. I used to read that. Usually that only takes around 1.5 months if you revise it properly also. And apart from that, I had without practicing tests, I should read Lakshmikant as many number of times, or the Shankar IS, the environment book and all. So, but these won't help you much. So prelims is not only about knowledge. So it's about application of your knowledge with the required elimination techniques. So I changed my approach and I didn't follow the traditional one. For example, I had 4 basic pillars in prelims. The first and most important pillar was static, that and the different subjects surrounding it. So in static also, I used to prioritize my subjects. For example, polity, there are 15 questions which are going to come, and then environment, around 15 questions which are going to come, and then economy, again 15 questions. So this is 45. This is almost 50% of the paper, just these 3 subjects. So I would make sure that these areas are very strong, especially static, and I would not go wrong in these. And apart from that, the second most important pillar, I would say, is with respect to the test papers, that or the test series. So through test series, what happens is you can apply whatever you want to experiment in these papers. That if, for example, you don't know a question, but you want to attempt it, how are you attempting it? And suppose with respect to SNT, sometimes how are you eliminating the options? And all these things you get an idea with respect to the test papers. And third, I would say, is current affairs. Okay, the importance has reduced to a great extent, and for this maybe you can give it less priority. Don't neglect it as such, because you never know. Prelims is always unpredictable. Maybe the pattern might change again. Don't neglect it, but give it adequate importance, or not much, I would say. Just give it a brief reading, but don't neglect it at the cost of static. Static should be your base, your foundation. And again, the fourth one I would say is PYQs again. So PYQs helps you get in the groove of UPSC. How is he trying to trap you? And then, or what are the various options which are being put? For example, last time he asked about only 1 pair, only 2 pair, only 3 pair, only 4 pairs. I'll just tell you a blind logic here. What my friends did last year was, usually earlier UPSC used to ask options like 1 2 2 3 1 3 1 2 3, and it usually shouldn't be. The answer would not be 1 2 3. Usually it used to be either 1 2 1 3 or 2 3. So if you see by logic, usually the number of statements correct are 2. And this time also, if you see the options, mostly the number of options which were right was only 2 pairs. So that kind of logic is people put, and my friends have also scored 130. So it's not only through knowledge you can get this. Okay, this logic may not work next year. I played on the safe side. I attempted around 85 questions, 85 to 90, and I was getting around 90 to 95. That was fine. And I felt that if the paper is tough for everyone, it's tough for everyone, and the cutoff will eventually reduce. So maybe some things, all these things, you'll get confidence only when you do the test series and have a proper analysis of the PYQs.
Okay, so I completely agree with what you've said, in the sense the philosophy that you have been following when it comes to your prelims preparation and prelims approach is quite very similar to the approach that we follow as part of the Dominate Prelims Initiative, as we had discussed earlier. The impetus on PYQs and applying your knowledge in tests and testing as to how far you are able to apply your common sense logical approaches, not only in PYQs, but also in tests. Again, you have also mentioned about decreasing importance of current affairs, in the sense just following one source for current affairs would be sufficient rather than running a lot behind current affairs and following newspapers to great extent, at least for prelims.
Yes, sir. I think one source would be more than enough.
One source would be more than enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
on top of that, I think certain like the elimination techniques or whatever elimination strategy you have, for example, like usually the extreme statements are wrong. So maybe you can follow this kind of strategy. Another thing would be that the facts which UPSC usually gives or the facts or figures are wrong. Maybe some of these techniques or tricks can be very helpful in fetching you more marks. See, it's always a risk, but I think it's worth taking the risk, and maybe such kind of strategies would be fine.
And I think you are very well placed in saying this when you say it's worth taking a risk. Now, this was your 5th mains and 4th interview. So you have given a lot of prelims to try and test these learnings, right?
True. So yes, sir. But maybe see, some of my friends attempt 100. So I didn't take that kind of risk that I'll attempt 100 questions. I thought with 85 or 90 and such kind of things, I would be fine. On top of that, I was confident with my static, sir. So once I was confident with my static, I could take the risk for the other 35 to 40 questions. I could play around with them. So this was very helpful. So at the base of it was always my static. So static always gave me the confidence to further around and explore the other questions. Without static, I think for me, clearing prelims would not be possible.
I think that's a very interesting way to put it. When you say you could play around with the remaining questions. Now, I had this interaction with one of your batchmates, Madhav. He'll be getting IPS. So he had said that prelims is 100% mind game. And you are using a similar expression when you say that you could play around with the remaining questions about you, which you were quite unsure. And you could get most of them right. Some of them probably you got wrong, right? That's the risk. That's where the risk lies. But the
And
thought process,
so one more thing.
yeah.
Like for example, which I was telling that usually 2 pairs are right and only 2 pairs my friends have taken. I was not confident of that strategy and I didn't play around with that. So if I would have played around, maybe my mindset would have changed. Like it would have made me more tense. So I was not confident of that strategy. I didn't play around. So for me, the other things worked.
Okay, understood. Also, Akshay, you have mentioned that whenever you could eliminate 2 options, you would attempt that question for sure. Like you made sure that you attempt that question. Now that speaks a lot about your risk-taking appetite. So, like, could you elaborate on this fact as to the number of questions that one must be attempting, assuming the difficulty levels remain same? The number of questions one was attempting and the risk appetite that one needs to have in the examination hall. Yes, Akshay.
So I think here it is very subjective, the answer for this, and it's different for different people. So for me, with test series and all, I got an idea that I should attempt, even if the paper is difficult, I should attempt above 80, and it should be between 80 to 90. And that was my strategy. So usually it was on the higher side of 80, like between 85 to 90. And I made sure that I used to attempt between, if I eliminated 2 options and there were 2 remaining, I used to attempt those kind of questions for sure. Because it's 50-50 usually. And maybe this is again a risk, and I took that risk. I went with that thing, and it cleared. It helped with me.
Okay. So
And sir, even when there were 2 options, right? So I used to put some logic, some other thing which made me inclined to the other option, and I went with that. So, for example, if I used to attempt 10 questions like that with 2 options, so maybe I used to get 6 questions right and 4 wrong. But still, if you see on the overall, I would be on the positive side only. So it used to be around, my net would be around 9 to 10 marks. So when the cutoff is so low, like 75, this 9 to 10 or 8 to 10 marks was very,
huge.
very critical.
Those 9 to 10 marks are huge.
True.
Again, I remember you mentioning this. Now, this is again quite interesting to hear and know. Like when you had these interactions with your friends, you said that your friends had this knack of eliminating options which had specific facts, brute facts. Also, when the statements were framed on this format, say for example, some activity is done by some XYZ organization. So that kind of statements, that kind of structuring is more likely to be wrong. So this was their thought process. So again, this applies to the risk appetite. Like, would you want to elaborate on this way of thinking and having such templates when it comes to prelims and applying those in the examination hall? Akshay.
Yes, sir. So basically, I never faced problem in the knowledge part. It was pretty decent enough, and so I had the confidence that whatever UPSC is giving, and the statement was not sure. So I thought it was only playing around with the students. And usually these statements or facts, these organizations, institutions are wrong. I went with that mindset, and that I used to mark those kind of statements wrong. And apart from that, certain extreme statements which were not general. So these also I used to eliminate it, and it used to be most of the time I practiced this in the test series as well, and I got them correct. So this gave me confidence. So see, sometimes some test series may set the paper so difficult that you'll end up getting 50, 40. Even I got them. So I think you shouldn't be scared here. As the exam approaches, right? So we need to look more towards PYQs, the past year UPSC question papers. So this will give you the confidence, and this will give you more the better way on how you have to apply your elimination tricks and techniques and or your strategies. So try to apply them on the PYQs rather than the test series. See, test series these days is becoming again very, very random. Each institute is putting its own, it's trying to make it more tough and all. It's very different from the UPSC thing, I would say. So, but the PYQs as the exam approaches becomes more important.
Okay, so I find the clarity of thought you had quite very interesting when you said you had this awareness that UPSC is playing around when it is putting some out of the box statements and questions that almost appear to be out of syllabus, because you had your static under control. And if UPSC is putting those expressions, those statements, those options, then you were able to pinpoint at the fact that yes, UPSC has something in mind and it is playing around. And so you tackle those questions accordingly. And
Yes,
I think that clarity of thought is very, very important when it comes to prelims. It's about how you perform in those 2 hours and go well prepared accordingly. So I think you have given quite relevant and quite germane points with respect to prelims. And I am sure students will be able to take away practical insights out of this interaction. At the end, I would just ask Akshay, what would Akshay want to convey to the students who will be giving their examination, not just prelims, but Civil Services Examination 2024. So what would be Akshay's message to the aspirants?
So, sir, I think firstly, I would like to say that, see, hard work is very important in this exam, but you cannot put blind hard work. So hard work should be complemented with smart work. So you should have the right strategies on how to deal with this exam, and the focused inputs or the focused approach, which is very critical. So smart work becomes very, very important. Apart from this, I would say that have consistency, be honest to yourself, and no matter what, not give up on your dreams. See, there will be challenges again, but learn from your mistakes. See, if you're repeating your mistakes again and again, you are a foolish person. Just learn from them, be wise enough, and not repeat the same mistakes. I think these are the 2 major things I would say.
I think you have put it quite bluntly. If you are repeating the same mistakes, you are foolish enough to not learn from your own mistakes. And again, you have emphasized on the importance of hard work coupled with smart work and perseverance. So I think we can end on this note with the hope that students find this interaction quite insightful. Thanks for joining in, Akshay. You had quite a hectic schedule, but you made time for this session. Hello. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, sir. Thank you, sir.